Claire Kagenoh considered her family. She, the prodigy, the celebrated spell sword. Her parents, respectable nobles. And then there was Sid, her younger brother, a boy so profoundly, aggressively average he could have been background scenery painted onto the world. He wasn't inept, merely unremarkable in every conceivable way. A perfect, random pedestrian number one. A completely mismatched pair of siblings, a fact that was painfully obvious to everyone. And Claire, bless her prideful heart, couldn't help but hate that idea. Later, at a ridiculously opulent restaurant, under the soft glow of a street lamp, a single juicy drop fell from a piece of meat on a fork. Claire took a blissful bite. She was in heaven, gushing about the exotic rosbeef and the sheer expense of the Mitsugoshi Company's finest establishment. Sid, playing the part of the doting brother, raised a glass of wine. "Congratulations on your victory at the God of War festival." Claire was stunned by his apparent generosity, assuming her hopelessly average brother had blown his life savings on a private room and the most expensive course. Sid offered a vague lie about being friends with the CEO, a claim so absurd she couldn't possibly believe it. She winked, convinced he'd done it all for her. "You shouldn't be making such obvious lies." Sid just smiled, internally recalling how she had pestered him into it with the persistence of a particularly irritating insect. Sure, let's go with that." Claire's mood soured slightly, admitting her victory felt hollow, a matter of luck since the top contenders were mysteriously absent. She mused on the chaos of the final day, with Shadow's appearance and Princess Iris's withdrawal. Sid, the actual cause of all that chaos, feigned surprise with theatrical flair. He was still basking in the afterglow of his performance, having brilliantly ad-libbed his way through Rose's sudden patricidal spotlight stealing. What an amateur, trying to upstage a true eminence in Shadow. He had no idea Rose was so ambitious, but it certainly made for good television. Claire, meanwhile, changed the subject, asking if he'd watched her matches. Sid, who had been far too busy being the main character to watch the side plots, bluffed poorly about a cool thumbs-up moment. The temperature in the room dropped. With terrifying speed, Claire had him pinned to the floor, a dinner knife pressed to his throat. "It wasn't a thumbs up, it was my middle finger." He offered a pathetic, immediate apology. Her fury spent, Claire's lecture devolved into genuine, if condescending, concern for his future. With his grades, how would he ever find work? Sid, unconcerned with such mortal trifles, gave a cryptic response about his secret ambitions. "I make a point of not talking about the most important things." Claire sighed, taking this to mean he had no ambitions at all. Therefore, he was free for her next little adventure. With the knife now glowing with magical energy, she made a grand declaration. "I'm going to hunt down the progenitor vampire, the Blood Queen, and you're coming with me." Sid's brain short-circuited. Progenitor vampire? Blood Queen? The names were so ridiculously, sublimely cool, he could barely contain his excitement. Under a brilliant full moon, they walked through the city streets. Claire explained the grim details. Vampire underlings were on the rise, and a ragtag strike force was heading to the source. Sid asked if vampires weren't supposed to be extinct. They were, Claire confirmed grimly, except in one place. She spoke of a huge slum, a hive of scum and villainy known as the Lawless Town, where the Blood Queen supposedly resided in the ominous Crimson Tower. Sid feigned reluctance, asking why he had to go. For his future, of course. She was going to drag him along to get some kind of achievement, maybe a recommendation for the Knights. "You can leave the fighting to me," she said with heroic confidence. "Just stay behind and cover me." Sid was about to thank her for the perfect opportunity to play the helpless mob character when he paused. A familiar scent wafted through the alley. Is someone dying nearby? Claire, her senses just as sharp, caught the scent of blood a moment later. She bolted down a set of stairs, Sid trailing behind her. She found the source immediately, brandishing her sword at a hunched-over figure in a dark alley. "You there! What are you doing in this place?" The figure turned, revealing a blood-smeared face and hollow eyes, kneeling over a fresh corpse. It was a ghoul. The creature lunged with a guttural snarl. "Get back!" Claire yelled, shoving Sid behind her. She met the ghoul's charge, her blade flashing. As the creature was bisected, Sid performed his part beautifully. He let out a perfectly pitched, utterly pathetic shriek of terror. Claire, mistaking his acting for a real attack, finished the ghoul with a brutal stab to the eye. "Stay away from my brother!" she roared, a tempest of protective fury. She rushed to his side, shaking him as he feigned shell shock. He internally gave his performance a standing ovation. Nailed it. Standing over the corpse, Claire identified it as a ghoul, a vampire's servant, surprised to find one so far from the Lawless Town. She looked at the body with pity. She confessed that ghouls were once human, and that she'd been feeling uneasy lately, worried she might one day lose her reason and become a monster herself. Sid, ever the tactful brother, was about to quip that you can't lose what you never had before. A swift punch to the face cut him off. Claire then dropped a bombshell, confessing that she, like the now infamous Princess Rose, might have been possessed. She described having black blemishes all over her body that grew over time, only to suddenly disappear one day. She had tried not to think about it, but feared she wasn't truly cured. A light bulb went off in Sid's head. Black blemishes. Oh, right. That thing he'd casually healed ages ago without a second thought. With blood streaming from his nose, he offered a mangled, yet surprisingly effective, piece of wisdom. "It'll be okay. I don't think you need to worry about that." For a moment, Claire looked touched, before quickly composing herself and pretending it was all a joke. She grabbed his arm to go call the knights. Sid, still bleeding, looked up. "The moon looks really red today," he observed, a perfect, ominous non sequitur. Elsewhere, on a grand balcony, Beta delivered her report to her master. Shadow Garden's infiltration of Oriana was proceeding smoothly. Sid, posing as Lord Shadow, barely listened, his mind on other things. Claire's nagging about his future had a point. He needed a steady income to fund his elaborate fantasies. This whole strike force business was a pain, but a town full of criminals. A wicked grin spread across his face. The Lawless Town sounded like a fantastic place to do some bandit hunting for cash. He interrupted Beta's report with a perfectly cryptic pronouncement. "A storm of blood. A storm is coming." Beta, ever the devoted subordinate, was instantly alarmed, thinking she'd missed some vital intelligence. "Gaze upon the moon, Beta," he commanded. She looked up, confused, then gasped. The moon was red? Her eyes widened in horror. Could this be the red moon of legend? She began to panic, apologizing for her oversight and vowing to dispatch forces immediately to prevent a catastrophe. Shadow held up a hand. "No need for concern. I'll see to this matter myself." Beta was aghast. He was going alone? To the Crimson Tower? It was too dangerous. Shadow turned, his voice dropping to a bone-chilling whisper. "You dare defy me?" Beta froze, stammering that she would never. Sid savored the moment, then delivered the finishing touch, gesturing to the sky with his wineglass. "This crimson-stained night sky, is it not a beautiful sight to behold?" Beta swooned, utterly captivated. She furiously scribbled in her book, documenting her master's profound ability to bend even legends to his will. Sid internally congratulated Beta. He had no clue why the moon was red, but adding "of legend" made it sound infinitely cooler. Welcome to Lawless Town, a festering sewer of a city where laundry lines were the closest thing to civic decoration. A group of spell swords picked their way through the filth. Among them was Quinton, a man whose ego was far more polished than his manners. He complained loudly about the stench. His companion, the far more composed Goldoh Kinmeki, warned him to stay alert. They had arrived at their destination, the impossibly tall, foreboding Crimson Tower. Quinton, unimpressed by its size, swaggered forward. Finding themselves the first of the strike force to arrive, he eagerly moved to take the Blood Queen's head himself. A dry chuckle stopped him. A pathetic figure in a hooded white robe sat chained before the gate. "You're not qualified to open that door," the figure rasped. Quinton scoffed, dismissing the man as a beggar and boasting of his and Goldoh's strength. The figure just laughed. "It's always fun to see fools bigger than myself," he cackled, a manic grin visible in the shadows of his hood. "Or you'll end up like me." Quinton and Goldoh stared in shock. The man revealed his identity. He was the White Demon, a warrior who had challenged the Blood Queen 4 years ago and was reduced to this pathetic state. Quinton, having never heard of him, dismissed the warning with a sneer. He loudly introduced himself and the ever-victorious Goldoh, declaring they weren't some no-names. As he continued his blustering, Goldoh urgently cut him off. "That man, his power is immeasurable." Quinton laughed, unable to see past the man's ragged appearance. He hefted his sword, ready to swat the small fry aside. A flash of movement, a wet squirt of blood, and Quinton stared down in disbelief as his own lifeblood sprayed from his chest. Goldoh could only scream his friend's name as the burly warrior collapsed. The White Demon chuckled. "Don't worry, he's alive." Goldoh's mind raced. The name White Demon echoed in his memory. He was terrified, but he couldn't abandon his friend. They were brothers in defeat, comrades who had helped each other recover their pride. A surge of righteous fury coursed through him. "How dare you do that to my friend?" He unleashed his ultimate technique, the Golden Dragon Sword, a massive torrent of energy roaring toward the hooded figure. He remembered Quinton's words of encouragement, a promise sworn over cheap ale. "Don't run. Stand up to them." "I swear on our friendship," he bellowed, pouring every ounce of his being into the attack. Goldoh withdrew his attack and ran away. The White Demon simply stood there. He shouldered his weapon as Goldoh fled. He was just the guard dog. He wouldn't give chase. A cruel smirk played on his lips. It wasn't like the boy could get out of their territory in one piece anyway. As if on cue, Goldoh skidded to a halt, surrounded by the predatory scum of the Lawless Town. This was their world, a place where might makes right, the sewer of the world.